I think it's very important to stay relevant, right? And it's important at every role, whether you're a CFO or not. And this is what I try to achieve at the best I can, because personal development, professional development, continuous learning, all these things are very important, So I take my personal time to attend, several webinars or, breakfast sessions, for example. I try to meet people who can give me more insights on how things are.
Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. 2024, big year ahead. The one favor I would ask, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast today. Hi, listeners. It's me, Conor McHugh, founder of Alchemy Search, and today I'm joined by Saad Siddiqui. Saad is an experienced chartered accountant, ACA and FCCA, with over 20 years of strategic finance and leadership expertise in European and Middle East markets. He has successfully led and transformed businesses, driving profitability and sustainable growth. Currently, Saad is the Chief Financial Officer at Mumzworld, the largest e-commerce platform in the region for mother, baby and child products. Previously, he served as the Group Head of Financial Control and Transformation for a UK public listed company and spent over 14 years with two of the largest Big Four firms in the UK. Saad, how are you?
Thank you, Conor. Thanks for the nice introduction. And really pleased to be here. Thanks for the invite.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming.
And just before we kick off, I would like to just say a few words for you guys. I know you guys for last few months now, and the progress you guys are making and the hard work behind the scenes is just amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing that, as a feedback, I'm seeing, you are in the right trajectory. You are building that brand.
It's good momentum.
Which is good momentum and very informative, podcast series and the insights that you share on that. So
look, thank you for coming on. And look, it's been great to, I guess, connect properly a couple of weeks ago. And, I said, the whole purpose of the podcast is to be, telling stories, but also, for job seekers, because there is so many job seekers in the UAE. Give them tips from people who are at the top. People who have been through it all. Obviously your stories I find very interesting. Having started in Pakistan, obviously then gone to the UK for a few years. Well, sorry, more than a few years, and then moved back to the UAE. So we're going to delve into all those aspects, and just get a feel for you and go from there. So
sounds great.
Perfect. Well, look, I guess how we want to start then is if you can tell me your career journey so far and how you progressed, and what have been the key learnings for you.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. And as I look back, sometimes I kind of take a bit of personal time, for self-reflection, and I just see where I started, where all of this started, where I've reached here, today. It's been quite a long but rewarding journey, I would say. My approach to life is I never said no to the opportunities life offered to me.
And and it's interesting because we've recently had a few CFOs in for similar discussions, and that's actually one thing. The last two people I've spoken to in the last week. This is my third recording in a week, and two of the other people that we had in was the exact same.
Interesting.
They just didn't say no to whatever was sort of asked.
I think it's quite important. If you have to have that hunger or appetite to do something different or to achieve. It's not to show to people that what you have achieved, but for your own personal satisfaction, I would say. So as a young professional, I was confused like any other,
I'm still confused, but
yes,
so
exactly.
At least you realize that when
so
you're young.
You keep on trying new things, but if you block the opportunities coming your way and you are very choosy and selective, I think this is where the things go wrong.
Yeah.
So opportunities keep on coming.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a time when they stop coming as well.
Yeah.
You need to be very careful.
If you're at the senior end of the market in UAE.
Exactly. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I didn't know what I was, I would really do.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried different things. I worked as a auto finance advisor when I was studying. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of traveling, meeting clients, trying to sell them, that you buy a car, for example, and I get my commission.
Yeah, of course.
So, all of these things I kept on trying, which obviously, may not be the relevant field I was going to choose.
But it got you used to resilience,
rejections, learning all the way. So I think it was amazing. So then I finally decided to pursue my chartered accountancy. But I didn't want to wait till it's completed. So I, started applying in Big Four firms. And I think one thing which I would give as an advice, and I give that to anyone coming to me as a young professional, keep your standards always very high. If you have very low standards, so then you end up kind of achieving that. So if you keep on your
surround yourself by good people.
Exactly, higher targets, it's quite important for you as a self journey. So this was the thing with me, whether right or wrong, I would not go and join any firm, not to say anything against them.
Of course,
but I would not go below any Big Four firm, for example. So I didn't even apply to any other firms, right? So I had to wait for some time because I was studying, my qualification wasn't complete at that point. So luckily, it worked out. I got an offer. It was EY at that point, and I think it all started. So I started as an external auditor, statutory auditor in the financial services. I worked with a lot of different type of banks, retail, investment banks, private equity firms. Worked with a lot of regulators as well. So as you keep moving, this gives you more and more.
It gives you a feel for all the different companies.
Absolutely. And I think it was an amazing journey. From there, I think it's again a long story, but from there I wasn't satisfied again.
But it's good, and this is what we want to dig into, because for people, anyone in the Big Four, in Pakistan, Ireland, wherever it may be, obviously, an opportunity for you to move elsewhere within the firm that come to you, and was it even a hesitation, or was it let's go, or how did it all come about?
No, I think you have to have that kind of attitude. So I am a person who would take on risks with career.
That's the accountant,
not
the car salesman's the risky man.
Not with everything though, but with career, I took risks. And I entered into those territories where I wasn't comfortable, and I didn't have any guidance. So raised by a single parent, my mother, she was obviously, too much occupied in raising three kids. So it was all on us to find a way to get to where we want to. So I think the journey started. So I was going back and forth between Middle East, Pakistan, and eventually in the UK. I wasn't happy with or satisfied internally with the numbers crunching, although it gave me an amazing experience and skill set in my financial analysis, auditing, attention to detail. But I wanted to understand how business operates.
And how did you find that? Obviously, there's so many Pakistani accountants in the UAE, but going from Pakistan, UAE, UK, was there a massive culture shock for you when you landed in the UK, for example? Or how did you find going into the EY office in UK compared to Pakistan? What were the differences, or how did you get used to it, I guess?
It's interesting point. But I think if I think back now, I think this Big Four thing helped me, because when you are, no matter in which country or jurisdiction you are working for a Big Four, normally the culture is quite diverse. So you even if you are based in a certain location, you get to interact with your peers across the globe. So that really helped, because you, as a young professional, you start getting that training.
Yeah.
That there are different type of people with different cultural backgrounds, for example. And if you have to get your job done through them, you need to be kind of working with them in a way that works. So, and other bridge I think was that I worked in Middle East. So I was based in Bahrain, working in Saudi for most of the time. This traveling gave me, lot of different experience, because when you work in from a corporate point of view, when you work in different jurisdictions, there are different regulatory bodies, and there are different regulations, and how strict these regulators are in enforcing these laws give you that learning as well as a professional. So this was kind of quite mixed for me in the UK, European markets, all very different. US obviously very different. Worked in the Middle East, so gave me a different perspective of life as well.
How to enjoy chaos.
How to enjoy chaos. But luckily I was not married at that point, so I could manage.
Sense. You were.
But yeah, I think it's been quite a journey. So I ended up, becoming a financial control and corporate finance consultant. Did a lot of work on the regulatory compliance, corporate governance, financial controls framework, implementations, and all. So there's a regulation in the US for US listed organizations, which is called Sarbanes-Oxley, which is SOX. And this SOX is quite mature in the US, obviously for the US listed organizations, but in the UK as well. So many US companies, listed companies, have their representations, legal presence in the UK. So get to learn a lot, on these kind of regulations, which wasn't the case, and is still not the case in the UAE, for example. Then just before I was moving to Middle East, couple of years, before that, there was a UK SOX coming up as well. So worked a lot on those things. So it all kind of stayed connected. Then there was a time when I said, it's enough with the firms. I spent over 14, 15 years now. It's time to move to industry. So it was a decision, basically. Again, this is something which I, tell young professionals.
And so just to paint the picture then for listeners. So what level? So when you moved, because obviously people, look, I was the Big Four. I was one of the worst auditors KPMG ever hired, but that's a different story. So what level were you was it when you were sort of financial controller level? Was that the sort of level you made your move into industry?
Yes, because the thing is that there's a time when you are offered a choice. If you stay with the firm, you choose the partnership route. If you don't want that, you need to move out early.
Get out.
Because then you are not relevant for an industry role, because you didn't have the experience from the other side of the table.
I think unless it's a very technical role.
Exactly.
The reality is, I think if you're a manager in consultancy, if you really want like an FP&A role or that sort of role,
let's say head of tax, for example. So you would still prefer a kind of an expert coming from a consulting background, having experience with different companies and organizations, kind of. So I think it was a point that I decided, no, I need to move out in the industry. I would like to explore more, just to satisfy my kind of, appetite for learning.
How did you find then going on to the other side of the table? When you look back now, because I imagine there's so many people that are in consultancies and they're saying, okay, I want to move into industry now. And I know some will say, but when you look back now, how was it? And is there anything you would have done differently?
I think it worked out again, for me. I think it worked out well because it was the right time when the UK SOX was coming in. I had all the expertise working with
you were a hot demand then. You name your price.
And because these regulations are quite strict in terms of the responsibility it poses on the directors and the board. They are for the US SOX, it's quite severe. It's we have case studies where directors
Are in trouble.
and CEOs ended up in jail.
Yeah.
Just because of these gross negligence in their control deficiencies and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite, it was taken very seriously, this UK SOX as well. But yeah, I think, CFO position these days is quite demanding, and it's not an operationally focused role.
Value officer seems to be the
Yes,
term that keeps getting
exactly.
brought up these days.
And you speak with a lot of CFOs.
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah,
as I said, it's interesting because I'm learning quite a lot on how the role seems evolving compared to 5-10 years ago, where I think from conversation I'm having, especially guys or females that are trying to automate things, to make it more strategic, and as I said, become that real business partner with the chairman and the CEO. It's a lot happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think it's more it's a combination of things now.
Mm-hmm.
So as a business, you would want to have a CFO who is having kind of an all-round experience, rather than focused on one aspect of a finance kind of domain. For me, it worked out well because all those different challenges I took up in my professional career helped me here, because I was I worked quite a lot of spent a lot of time in being an external auditor, so was obviously good with numbers. Got trained with that. Yes, I love numbers. But I wasn't happy, so I moved into the risk and finance consulting side of things, which gave me more kind of depth of experience in how corporate finance works in an organization. What are the other challenges faced by finance organizations, for example, maturity of their processes, controls, financial risk management, for example, all these things. Reporting obviously, came from the audit background. So with regulations, all that kind of stuff. So strategic thinking as well, so as you grow further in even in a professional firm, you have direct interactions with the CEOs, board, audit committees, CFOs. So you get their perspectives as well, even though at times those are not directly relevant to you for at that point. But all of those learnings and knowledge transfer helped me in growing.
I think the other thing
roles as well,
which I'm sure you do appreciate, is the intangibles, where the fact that you've lived in so many different countries or worked in different territories, it does help you in building relationships. For example, if you just come straight from Pakistan into Dubai, and then you had let's just say a British CEO or a chairman or someone from Europe or even someone from Saudi, Bahrain, it would be quite challenging for you to really work out how to build that relationship. Well, the fact, obviously, you've lived in England, Bahrain, Saudi, when you're dealing with these people, if they're suppliers or wherever it is, I think it gives you an edge. And I think that's one of the intangibles, which, again, going back to my point earlier on with some of the CFOs I've recently spoken to, that they've moved around. And it's put them out of their comfort zone. And obviously, in recruitment, we're constantly talking, to different nationalities, and coming from Ireland, I was probably a bit ignorant to, some of the things in the Middle East. Even with India, Pakistan, all these little things, which, you don't really realize until you come out and appreciate it from that end. So, I think it just goes back to the intangibles pieces of being out there and being able to build relationships, because at the end of the day, as a CFO, I imagine you're not doing too much reporting these days, or you're not really doing too much number crunching on SOX or anything like that, where you've probably built up a very good team. So for you as a CFO, it is that maintaining relationships, keeping people motivated, which are things that, how do you quantify that really?
I think it's very important to stay relevant, right? And it's important at every role, whether you're a CFO or not. And this is what I, try to achieve, at the best I can, because personal development, professional development, continuous learning, all these things are very important, you know. So I take my personal time to attend, you know, several webinars or, you know, breakfast sessions, for example. I try to meet people who can give me more insights on how things are, you know. So all these different perspectives, you know, what's hot in the market, what others are doing, you know. It's not necessarily copying someone, but you
making
know,
it
you need
authentic
to
in your own
get
way.
it. Exactly. And this is a kind of a self-reflection, self-assessment as well, that you know, these are the hot topics in the market. Tax is a big thing, for example. Do I have enough learning and understanding on the UK corporate tax, for example, or UAE corporate tax? And these sort of challenges, when or questions comes to your mind, and naturally you go back to the drawing board or to the books, you know, you understand what is going on. So I think this is something which keeps you stay relevant. And this is the same thing you would do as any head of function. You know, you pass it on to your teams. You make sure you develop a culture of continuous learning. And I think this is a kind of thing which I, you know, advise to any young professional as well. Just don't say no to learning. You know, whether it's relevant or not.
Just say yes and worry about thinking about how it works later on.
Because, you know, you'll not correct yourself or learn new things unless you have
mistakes.
Yes, exactly. So made mistakes. If you have you know, gone wrong in certain areas, that would, you know, you would not be able to sleep properly unless you correct that, right? So it is a natural kind of human behavior. So this is what I tell to people, you know, young kids: don't restrict yourself. If you try to aim high as well, so if you end up in a big four, for example, it's a very big corporate environment. Just don't restrict yourself to external auditing, for example. Keep on, you know, exploring new services, gain new experiences. Move into transaction advisory. Move into tax practice. You know, you are still young. You are not taking any kind of, you know, wrong decision.
Getting the tax experience now would be pretty good for anyone who wants to. If you've obviously, it's been quite funny the last few years. You know, a lot of accountants claim they're tax professionals as well in some of the CVs I've seen.
And this is, you know, the thing you will see, and I'm sure you have noticed, it's with every regulation. When VAT came in the first time division, so yeah, I think it's a case. But I think you know, as a finance professional, you need to be on top of all of these things. For example, there's a Pillar 2 requirement now on the tax side, which many businesses are not aware. We had in the UAE OECD meeting last quarter in September, I believe, 23, where Ministry of Finance deferred it to 2025. But this is again a regulation which is on the minimum tax effective rate of 15%. So in the UK, if you have 9%, and if you are earning elsewhere as well, minimum effective
15
tax you have to pay net is 15. So those regulations will come as well. So you need to be forward-looking as well.
Good.
And need to.
I think plan for it. I think what we see, obviously, tax recruitment in particular has really spiked in the last 6 months as an industry hires, because the reality is, if you don't get your house in order, you're going to get hit with a big fine.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes material, and then the chairman or the CEO will be on your case.
Because general kind of misconception is, oh, it's just a tax. It's just like any other tax. And, you know, when the filing time comes, you know, we'll engage someone who will do our taxes, and that's it.
The damage is done then.
Damage is done. You are not optimized on the tax payout, for example. I'm not saying by any means that you, you know, try to reduce your tax payout. But, you know, within the legal framework, you need to look back in your operating model design, for example, you know, and use the benefits offered by the regulation. So in our case, in the UAE, for example, if you're not in a free zone, think about moving to a free zone, you know, designated free zone, for example, which is offering you 0%. It's nothing against law. it's a choice.
It's just
You
what
know,
it
so
is.
you
Yeah,
need to understand. So it may be the case that you could have moved to free zone, ended up paying 0%, but you are actually paying 9% on your profits.
yeah.
Which is again, going back to the same thinking and mindset that you have to really understand all of these regulations
Yeah.
and the impact on your businesses.
Yeah.
So unless you don't do that, it's not just about
Yeah.
filing. So yeah.
As far as the reality is, you're top of the pile from a finance function perspective. Is it a lonely place?
At times, yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes. There are certain situations where you really need a helping hand.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you cannot always engage a consultant.
Because and the reason why I bring it up obviously is that obviously I see it with certain CFOs that I imagine at times it does get incredibly lonely, and maybe there's sometimes not a stigma, but if he or she goes to the chairman or the CEO, then they might be like, oh, this person can't do the job. So maybe sometimes they vent it in, and obviously then at the same time they can't really be going to their FC or FD. So
yeah, that's
how I got this is obviously case by case basis, but how have you gone about it, or is there a mentor you have, or someone you soundboard things off if ever there's a difficult situation?
Yeah, I think it's and this is not, I would say, only when you become a CFO.
Yeah, of course.
It's throughout your professional journey. A young professional starting from that kind of stage of your career, there are times, and I have experienced those times, where I felt really lonely because I couldn't kind of get help and get someone to understand that this is the problem I'm facing, for example, and it may not be that serious or concerning to you, but it is for me.
Yeah.
So there are those times, and it's I think it's at every stage of your career.
Yeah.
No matter if you are the chairman of the board or a chief executive officer, CEOs are carry much more weight, obviously. But so I think how best I have been able to manage all of this is to build a kind of a closed network, of people with similar backgrounds, for example. So because I have worked in so many different places and in countries, over time I've built very kind of a sincere block of people,
but your network is so important.
Exactly.
When times are tough.
So it's always the case that you're stuck with something. You really want to know what is the right way to approach it, for example, and especially and even in general, how others are doing in the market, for example. So you have a certain way to manage a risk, for example, but is this the right way? Although you are able to meet or mitigate that risk, but is this the right way or workflow that you should be following? I'm just giving a very basic example. So you refer back to those individuals who have been going through the same challenges and all. One thing which I've started seeing in the UAE, it was the case in the UK, but here I've started seeing as well that many consulting firms, recruitment firms like yourselves, they've started encouraging people to build these closed networks, which is very helpful. So individually, if I start approaching people on LinkedIn, they'll think that I'm applying for a job role.
Yeah, interested.
Right, interested. But intermediary like yourselves would really help getting everyone together in one room. And, this is always quite helping, because if not me, maybe someone else is having a problem, and maybe I have the right answer for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously we've touched on the regulatory and compliance landscape. So, how do you see that evolving in the UAE? Because the reality is there's a lot of eyes on this part of the world at the moment, and obviously a lot of investment coming in, a lot of companies setting up, and of course the one thing they want is comfort around regulatory and compliance. So how do you see things?
Yeah, it's definitely something which is evolving very quickly, and the speed of these regulations coming in the UAE, I think personally, I think there was a lot to catch up.
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of the world, if you want your economy to be stable and growing, you have to catch up with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where all these, being signatories or members to OECD Pillar 2 kind of, initiatives. UAE has been on the forefront on all these things, although there are still things which, coming our way. We are a bit behind the rest of the world. But yeah, I think UK corporate tax already it took effect.
Yeah.
Which was much needed for the corporates. I think it's there is always that fear, with consumers or a common man, that even these corporate taxes would be passed on to us when companies pay these taxes. You would apply these same things on your
consumer.
products.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case. It's not always the case. There is a different thinking behind these regulations. You want to be seeing a bigger picture. So you want to be making sure the economy you're working in is stable. They have different a variety of revenue sources to fund different initiatives, for example. Yeah, exactly. You cannot just keep on.
These bridges, these extra lanes for traffic, they don't pay for themselves, I guess.
I think it's and to be fair to people, these countries have always been heavily oil rich, so they never needed to go outside of the oil economy to fund anything. So, but things are changing, so you need to be looking into different ways because even the government operates as a company.
Yeah.
So you need to have a variety of different revenue sources to keep it going and to keep it, profitable. For example, yes.
Yeah.
So the more profitable or cash rich the economy is, the more benefits will flow to the.
And there'll be no need for income tax, hopefully, down the line.
Yeah. But we never know for sure. But I think if I see UAE. It implemented VAT in 2018. It's still at 5%. Around the same time, I think it was 16 when Saudi implemented VAT. It changed from 5% to 15%.
Yeah, they changed it.
Bahrain changed from 5% to 10%. So UAE is still quite attractive.
Very competitive,
in that way. But I think there are a lot of regulations coming in. So especially for businesses who are operating in multi-jurisdictional
the transfer
environment.
pricing piece in the tax space.
Pricing, it's again, many people they take it very lightly. It's not. It asks you to go back. And review in detail your operating model design, your supply chain, your logistics flow, your interactions between group companies, what unnecessary overlapping transactions you're having, because every transaction means you are adding cost plus to that transaction to meet the arm's length principle. So it's all quite challenging and tricky. And I think these are all the challenges. So for example, for businesses like who are operating in a multi-jurisdictional environments, they need to be extra vigilant and on top of these things. For example, we don't have to only worry about the compliance landscape or regulatory landscape in the UAE. We operate in KSA as well. So there is corporate tax for foreign entities, which is 20%. Then a sudden shift in the tax rate for the Saudi listed Saudi businesses who are registered as a Saudi national business. They pay zakah at 2.5%. And these are two very different things. So if you don't have that right understanding and skill set within your team, you would definitely struggle, because you can only rely on consultants to a point.
I think
that's the big thing.
Like we're seeing with a lot of tax rolls where people think if they get an industry tax person in, it's the end of the tax consultants. It's not at all. It's actually better for tax consultants because
Absolutely.
A tax consultant in whatever firm it is would much rather be dealing with a head of tax.
Absolutely,
Or,
and talking the same language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because when people speak with tax experts, they, obviously, because tax is complex, so they start talking in jargons, and people won't get it. They'll say that they're just impressing us. But it's true. Like, pillar 2, for example, effective tax rate. What does that even mean? What is effective tax rate? We know tax rate, but how do you actually work out effective tax rate? Transfer pricing, arm's length principles. Who would understand normally? These things, and how do you achieve that? There's a lot of guidance in the tax regulations around the benchmarkings that you need to do, and different mathematical approaches you need to be applying to arrive at that minimum acceptable transfer pricing rate. So
the thing is, my view is that if you get a good one in, they pay for themselves. Savings that make the business.
Absolutely.
And then I guess to sort of close on with for job seekers. So obviously, I imagine in your time you've interviewed plenty of people. At all levels for roles. Like, what tips or advice would you give to job seekers? Because it can sometimes be very challenging for certain candidates that we have interviewing for us, that they just keep getting through the first round, and for whatever reason they don't get it over the line. And it's sometimes quite difficult for us as the middle person, where we don't get the feedback from the client on what this person is maybe doing wrong. So how do you what stands out in interviews for you? And this might be help to anyone that does interview in the future with you, but what do you like to see in interviews, and I guess what are the sort of no-nos as well that you've sort of picked up on over your time?
If I put it in a way that requirements and expectations slightly differ based on the seniority of that role.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So if you are applying for a finance manager as an example, the expectations and the people interviewing you would have different expectations from that candidate, right? So my advice basically to that lower to middle kind of management,
newly qualified
roles, or 5-10 years of experience, working at manager levels, for example. Preparation is absolutely must. You need to be absolutely clear what role you are applying for and what skills and experience you have to offer. The employment is to me is a mutual contract, right? Although employees, they think that we have to do anything we can to get this job, but they end up underestimating their skills.
Works both ways.
Work both ways. So it's a contract between the two entities, two individuals, I would say. They have a requirement and you have something to offer, and you meet the middle ground, right? So you make a deal. But if you don't have, so anyone is lying on any side, that means it would end up in a disaster. So in most cases, it's the employee or that candidate who is applying for a role, because it's like a normal thing, and they just keep on applying with the same CV, same profile, without giving consideration to the industry sector, not even looking at the job description. If it says we are looking for a native Arabic speaker, and you come from Kenya, and you are just applying for that role repeatedly, and you're approaching individuals on LinkedIn as well. That's a big no. Even if they change mind tomorrow, they'll not.
And even for us, obviously, as recruitment, and look, if one of our team puts up a job, there's thousands of applicants, hundreds of applicants, and naturally, of course, we can't get back to everyone. But if we have certain candidates that are just applying to everything, I fully appreciate sometimes people are in desperate situations, and it's very easy for me to be sat here and say those sort of points. But for us as the recruiters, like, come on, if I have an Arabic speaking role and an Irish guy applies for it, I'm like,
that's the thing.
So
I think it's extremely important. Actually, it's extremely important on the candidate's part to be very well prepared. And it's not just a point in time thing that you accepted for an interview and you are now sitting in front of the interviewer and you are trying your best to go through that. You need to be constantly learning and upgrading yourself to stay relevant.
Yeah.
If, for example, you have good qualifications, you have good experience, but you are not understanding the value or the importance of soft skills,
Yeah.
your personal appearance, your presentation skills,
Yeah.
99% chance is that you won't be hired.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing that
Yeah.
I've seen in my career, the guys that get from mid-level to senior level, it is those intangible soft skills, presentation,
Absolutely.
being able to present, for example, because the reality, especially for accountants, that, when you're technically sound, everyone will get the same bottom number. So it's sort of the subjective areas where you need to be more comfortable. And, for yourself, for example, obviously you come across very calm demeanor. Was this something you worked on, or were you naturally quite a calm person, or was there a point where you said, okay, I need to, work on this, maybe I'm going to do more networking events, or, how did you get to that next sort of level?
If you really want to achieve something, that appetite needs to come very early in your life as a professional life, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I was very confused.
Yeah.
I was very scared. And scared that I won't be able to achieve what I want to achieve. And that was something, kept me awake for long. Even though I was very young, it's normally not the case with young professionals. We are very calm and casual. But I wanted to do something and do something differently. So I always looked at role models. I didn't fix my role model, at any point in time. Even if I'm meeting someone and the person is standing next to this guy, for example, and I like his dressing, for example, just a normal thing, I would think that this is the kind of professional attire I would be. It's not to copy anyone. It's just as a young professional, you keep on learning,
aspiring.
So I, it's a very normal thing. I had a boss. I was going in a meeting with him, and I was, obviously, as a young professional, you would not care too much about things.
Yeah.
I was wearing a tie, obviously. I had a brown belt. I had black shoes and white socks. And this guy, and I still kind of love him for this. He took me on the side and said, "What are you doing? Why your belt is not matching with your shoe?"
I've worn football
I said,
socks.
"All right, do I need to match it?
Yeah.
Why your socks are white? Why they're not solid colors?"
Well, I remember when I was in London, I wore brown shoes, and I suppose in London, or the British people, they love their black shoes in London. So there was no brown in town was the word. So I quickly had to change my what I thought were lovely brown shoes to black shoes. But yeah,
but these are very, very small things. You won't even notice. But these are all the things. If your mind is built up like that, that you'll start noticing different good things, in across the professionals you meet, for example. And in terms of presentation skills, for example, when you meet someone and this guy really inspires you in terms of the way they are presenting, you want to be learning that, right? So, it's a natural thing.
I think, and it comes back to, I know I keep drilling into the point, but it's just getting exposed to different cultures, different people. Because I think if you're surrounded by your own people, your own tribe, the whole time, especially anyone coming to Dubai, because this is a place where, I think we're in a room here, we've 4 people in the room, 4 different nationalities, 100% in this room. That doesn't happen everywhere else in the world. So I think it is, for anyone who wants to, relocate to the UAE, is if you're just surrounded by the same people, fine. But if you can get exposure to different cultures, different ways of life, that for me is what will get you to the next level over here.
And equally important that you need to have your self realization. You need to know where you stand. Unless you do that, you will not move to the next level. It's an improvement on a day-to-day basis. If I have hundreds of things, I still look to improve. But if I just stop that learning or close the door to that learning, or if I start thinking that I've reached to a certain position, I've achieved whatever I wanted to, that's a stop. I'll die professionally. At that point. So you keep on, learning. You want to be staying relevant. You need to be improving. It's not only professionally. It's as a person, I think you need to be constantly, challenging yourself. What kind of people you are meeting. What is that you are getting out of them? Is this a good thing? It's a good influence, bad influence. The same thing you would pass it on to your kids, for example. So it's all, I think, all connected, all relevant. But self-realization is very important, especially for the candidates. Going back to the candidates' advice, we got lost in. But for candidates, it's very important. Be very clear on what you are applying for. If you need to be honest to yourselves. If you're not fit for that role, you know it already. Don't apply.
Exactly.
You're absolutely minimizing your chances of getting selected next time. If you are in the hands of a recruiter, for example, they know you.
For your sins.
You applied for the tax role before. Now you're applying for
a finance role.
A different role now. So obviously,
we see it a lot.
So
look, I guess from our side, thank you for coming in for the conversation. We're going to end on a few just lighter, quick round questions. To get people to get a feel of you from a personality standpoint. So, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And don't say Crawley.
No. Crawley, no, although it was amazing, but no, Crawley. I went to Seychelles once.
Yeah, lovely.
And I just fell in love with that place. It was so calm, so beautiful. It was like you are no longer in this world. So it was, those people have different challenges of their own.
Very relaxed.
Very relaxed. They would wake up early, start, walking, next to the beaches and all, very calm and very day-to-day kind of. So it's amazing, I would want to go back there and maybe settle at some point.
When you retire.
Retire there.
Get the cash in bank.
Because it's all this hustle and bustle, in a city life, and especially when you travel a lot, you naturally look for calmer places, to settle down. I think that is one place where I would
and then, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received or seen that's inspired you?
That never say to no to opportunities coming to your life. So I think that I was kind of already synced with that idea,
and
that just stayed with me throughout the life. And I would say the same to everyone. We'll see what happens next, but at least see what that opportunity is.
He who dares usually wins is how I see it. And then again, I fully appreciate, given you spent 14 years within the Big Four, maybe from an early age you wanted to be an accountant. But what was there a dream job you had when you were a child?
My dream jobs, started kind of all the way from being a motor shop mechanic to an Air Force pilot or serving in the armed forces, for example. But these kind of roles always attracted me. But I ended up in a role where I'm sitting on a desk. So it's completely different. So I think it's the life or the God plans for you, or what you choose for your life, whatever. Those decisions shape up your life.
Well, thank you. We got there. It flew by. So look, Saad, on behalf of the team at Alchemy, thank you for joining today, and look forward to releasing this one.
Thank you so much, Connor. Really glad that I'm part of this podcast series, and again, you guys are doing amazing. Keep up the good work. There's a lot we are learning from you guys,
thank you.
especially on how the recruitment trends are working in the market, what news are coming our way, and all that. So it's amazing job. Thank you for
Pleasure.
having me, and good
Thank you
luck.
very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.